Chapter 3, 30 Scalps. Within a few minutes, loud snores, well, not loud, but loud for the Indian, began to come out of the teepee. But Omri, sleepy as he was himself, was not quite ready for bed. He had an experiment to do. As he had figured it out so far, the cupboard, or the key, or both together, brought plastic things to life. Or, if they were already alive, turned them into plastic. There were a lot of questions to be answered, though. Did it only work with plastic? Would, say, wooden or metal figures also come to life if they were shut up in the cupboard? How long did they have to stand there for the magic to work? Overnight? Or did it happen right away? And another thing, what about objects? The Indian's clothes, his feather, his knife, had all become real. Was this just because they were part of the original plastic figure? If he put, well, anything you like, the despised plastic teepee, for instance, into the cupboard and locked the door, would that be real in the morning? And what would happen to a real object if he put that inside? He decided to make it a double trial. He stood the plastic Indian tent on the shelf of the cupboard. Beside it he put a matchbox car. Then he closed the cupboard door. He didn't lock it, he just counted slowly to 10. Then he opened the door. Nothing had happened. He closed the door again, and this time he locked it with his great-grandmother's key. He decided to give it a bit longer this time, and while he was waiting, he lay down in bed. He began counting to 10 slowly. He got roughly as far as 5 before he fell asleep. He was awakened at dawn by Little Bear bawling at him. The Indian was standing outside the felt teepee on the edge of the table, his hands cut to his mouth as if shouting across a measureless canyon. As soon as Omri's eyes opened, the Indian shouted, "Day come! Why you still sleep? Time, eat, hunt, fight, make pictures." Omri leapt up. He cried, "Wait!" and almost wrenched the cupboard open. There on the shelf stood a small teepee made of real leather. Even the stitches on it were real. The poles were real twigs. They were tied together with a strip of animal hide. The designs were real Indian symbols, put on with bright dyes. The car was still a toy car made of metal, no more real than it had ever been. "It works," breathed Omri, and then he caught his breath. "Little Bear," he shouted, "it works, it works. I can make any plastic toy I like come alive, come real. It's real magic. Don't you understand? Magic." The Indian stood calmly with arms folded, evidently disapproving of his excitement. "So? Magic? The spirits work much magic. No need to wake dead with howls." Omri hastily pulled himself together. Never mind the dead. It was his parents he must take care not to wake up. He picked up the new teepee and he set it down beside the one he had made the night before. "Here's the good one I promised you," he said. Little Bear examined it carefully. "No good," he said. "What? Why not?" "Good teepee, but no good Iroquois brave. See?" He pointed to the painted symbols. "Not Iroquois sign. Algonquin. Little Bear sleep there. Iroquois spirit. Angry." "Oh," said Omri, disappointed. Little Bear, like Omri teepee. Need paint. Make strong picture. Iroquois sign. Please spirits." Omri's disappointment melted into pride. He had made a teepee that satisfied his Indian. "It's not finished," he said. "I'll take it to school and I'll finish in my crafts lesson. I'll take out the pins and I'll sew it up properly. Then when I come home, I'll give you poster paints and you can paint your signs." "I paint, but must have longhouse. Teepee, no good for Iroquois." "Just for now?" Little Bear scowled. "Yes, but very short. Now eat." Yes. What do you like to eat in the mornings?" "Meat," said the Indian immediately. "Wouldn't you like some bread and cheese?" "Meat. Or corn or some eggs?" The Indian folded his arms uncompromisingly across his chest. Meat, said Omri. Yes, well, I'll have to see what I can do. In the meantime, I think I'd better put you down on the ground. Not on ground now? No, you're high above the ground. Go to the edge and look, but don't fall. The Indian took no chances. Lying on his stomach, he crawled, commando fashion, to the edge of the chest of drawers, and he peered over. Big mountain, he said. Well, but it seemed difficult to explain. May I lift you down? Little Bear stood up and looked at Omri measuringly. Not hold tight, he said. No, I won't hold you at all. You can just ride in my hand. He laid his palm up next to Little Bear, who after only a moment's hesitation stepped onto it, and for greater stability sat down cross-legged. Omri gently transported him to the floor. The Indian rose to his feet and jumped off onto the gray carpet. At once he began looking about suspiciously. He dropped to his knees. He felt the carpet, and he smelled it. Not ground, he said. Blanket. Little Bear, look up. He obeyed, narrowing his eyes and peering. Do you see the sky or the sun? The Indian shook his head, puzzled. That's because we're not outside. We're in a room, in a house big enough for people my size. You're not even in America. You're in England. The Indian's face lit up. English, good. Iroquois fight with English against French. Really? Said Omri, wishing he had read more. Did you fight? Fight? Little Bear, fight like mountain lion. Take many scalps. Scalps, said Omri. How many? Little Bear proudly held up all 10 fingers. Then he closed his fist, opening them again with another lot of 10, and even another. I don't believe you killed so many people, said Omri. Little Bear, not lie. Great hunter, great fighter. Any white scalps? Omri asked. Some. French, not take English scalps. Englishmen, friends to Iroquois. Help Indian fight Algonquin enemy. Omri stared at him. He suddenly wanted to get away. I'll go and get you some meat, he said. He went out of his room, closing the bedroom door behind him. For a moment, he didn't move. He just leaned against the door. He was sweating slightly. This was more than he had bargained for. Not only was his Indian no toy come to life, he was a real person, somehow magicked out of the past over 200 years ago. It occurred to Omri for the first time that his idea of Indians, taken from Western films, was false. After all, those had been actors playing Indians, and afterwards wiping their war paint off and going home to their dinners, not in teepees, but in houses like his. Little Bear was not an actor. Omri swallowed hard. 30 scalps? Of course things were different in those days. Those tribes were always making war on each other. And when you came to think of it, the English and French, whatever they thought they were doing, were probably no better. They killed each other as often as they could. Even now, weren't soldiers doing the same thing? Weren't there wars and battles all over the place? Still, when he tried to imagine Little Bear, full size, bent over some French soldier, hurting him, yuck! Omri pushed away from the door and walked unsteadily downstairs. No wonder he had felt from the first slightly afraid of this Indian. He asked himself, swallowing repeatedly and feeling that just the same he might be sick, whether or not it would be better to put Little Bear back in the cupboard, lock the door, and turn him back into plastic, knife and all. Down in the kitchen, he ransacked his mother's cupboard for a piece of meat. He found some corned beef at last, and he opened it with the can opener on the wall. He dug a little chunk out with a teaspoon. He put it absently into his own mouth, and he stood there chewing it. The Indian didn't seem surprised about being in a giant house in England. He had shown that he was very superstitious. He believed in magic and in good and evil spirits. Perhaps he thought of Omri as, well, a kind of genie or whatever Indians believed in. The wonder was that he wasn't more frightened of him, for genies or giants or spirits or whatever were always supposed to be very powerful. Omri supposed that if one happened to be the son of an Indian chief, one simply didn't get scared as easily as ordinary people, especially perhaps if one had taken 30 scalps.